days meeting of the Human Services Background Study Eligibility Task Force to order. And Mr. Vogel, will you do a formal roll call, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Ms. Basham. Ms. Basham. Senator Champion. Senator Champion. Ms. Dawson. Ms. Dawson. Mr. Esme.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Evans. Ms. Evans. Actually, I see Ms. Evans has just come in, Mr. Chair, so I'll count her as present.
Thank you.
Mr. Gaffin.
Present.
Mr. Hanson. Mr. Hanson. Ms. Huntley.
Present.
Mr. Urban. Mr. Urban. Ms. Kaser.
Present.
Mr. Kammer.
Present.
Lieutenant Knotts. Lieutenant Knotts. Judge Kulik. Judge Kulik. Senator Matthews. Senator Matthews. Ms. Mattson.
Present.
Representative Mueller. Representative Mueller. Inspector General Modi.
Present.
Mr. Page. Mr. Page. Ms. Robertus.
Present.
Representative Robbins. Representative Robbins. Mr. Sandoval. Mr. Sandoval. Judge Satterbeck. Judge Satterbeck. Ms. Sherlock.
Present.
Mr. Tatum. Mr. Tatum. Ms. Williamson. Ms. Williamson. All right,
Present.
Mr. Oh, thank you, Ms. Williamson. I'm sorry, a little quick on the draw there. All right, Mr. Chair, 11 of the members are present. We're a little shy of quorum, however.
I'm here, Mr. Vogel.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. I actually noted you as present when I saw you come in, but thank you for letting me know. Oh, and Mr. Chair, I think you're muted.
My apologies. What's our number for quorum?
Off the top of my head, Mr. Chair, I believe we need 12.
Okay, I did
Actually, here's Mr. Page, Mr. Chair. So I believe we do now have quorum.
Okay, great. So since we have quorum, our last meeting was the 20th, I believe, of May. The meeting minutes have been posted. Does anybody have any thoughts, edits, changes, objections to the posted meeting minutes? Seeing no hands raised, we're going to adopt the May 20th meeting minutes as drafted and posted. Thank you all for being here today. We're going to have a discussion of essentially, we're going to get brief updates from some of our subcommittees and more thoughtful update and in-depth update from the data analysis, and Chair Kammer will be leading that. I did have a brief discussion with Lucas Dawson with Remedies. She's unable to be here, and Mr. Esme, please interrupt me or correct me, but the only update really is that Remedies is working on the preponderance of evidence standard, and that's essentially what it's tasked with at this point. Anything, I mean, we're keeping this real short, Josh, but anything else that you'd want to add from Remedies?
No, we're just getting started on that issue. We had sort of built out a timeline for the summer to make sure that we were able to tackle all of the items we had identified at this kind of the start of the committee, and we're kind of just transitioning from the permanent disqualification issue that we had been working on to the preponderance of the evidence standard. So hopefully we'll have a more substantive update on that work at the next group meeting.
And I think it's similar with the disqualification subcommittee. Disqualification subcommittee is looking at the list of disqualifying offenses under the Background Study Act and is about halfway through the 15-year list. We'll next week finish the rest of the 15-year list, but we don't have a significant substantive update, no recommendations at this time. So I think we're going to see that sort of staggering through the summer. Some meetings of the large group will have really in-depth updates. Others are going to be real general. So I think both with remedies and remedies and disqualifications pretty brief today. I did want to check in with Chair Williamson on data. I don't know of any updates from data, but Chair Williamson, is there anything that you want to update the group about with data subcommittee?
Thank you, Chair, and good day, members and all who are present. There's no updates from the data subcommittee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. And so with our new data analysis subcommittee, a lot of work's been going on there, and Chair Kammer has been crunching the numbers, and I'm going to turn it over to him now and thank him for all the great work that he's been doing so far. Mr. Kammer.
Well, thank you. And I have to give kudos to everyone who's been on the data analysis subcommittee, because we've just been spending time in the meetings looking at numbers together and crunching away. So it's been great having a working committee. A couple updates from our most recent meeting, which was yesterday. First off, Mr. Vogel has pulled data from a number of different states, and we're trying to compile a picture of the United States, and we hope to code it basically for those states that use primarily conviction data will be, identified one color, one shading, and those that use something else will be shaded otherwise, just to keep it simple and give you something nice to look at. So we're in the process of going through and taking and doing some double checking with that data, and hope to have that for you soon. The other place where we spent some time yesterday, we understood that others were looking at preponderance of the evidence, and we had a request to take a little bit closer look at POE. So Mr. Vogel, are you willing to pull up that spreadsheet we were working on yesterday? So prior to yesterday, what existed for us was on the left side of the spreadsheet, but where we spent some time yesterday was taking a closer look at percentages just to make this a little bit more digestible, and we will continue to make it more digestible into probably some sort of visual form. But what I'd really like to do is scroll down to preponderance of the evidence and just draw out some of the things that our data analysis subcommittee was really focusing on yesterday. So thank you for highlighting that, Mr. Vogel. So when you take a look at preponderance of the evidence here for 2018, looking within this particular characteristic, within this particular variable here, for preponderance of the evidence, it says about 40% of the, not about, but 40% of the individuals who were disqualified based on POE identified as African American. When you take a look at same area, 49% of those who were disqualified based on preponderance of the evidence identified as white. So as you look down the next few rows, a perfect situation, you would hope that these percentages would look relatively the same, for permanent bar, 10-year bar, 15-year bar, 10-year bar, so on and so forth. But they don't. So let's take the first line here underneath the first row, permanent bar, for instance. You'll see that in permanent bars, 63% of those permanent bars were individuals who identified as African American. So that's higher than that base percentage of 40%. You look a little, a few columns over to white, and only 26% of permanent bars were individuals who were white. You can scroll down, well, I shouldn't say scroll down, Mr. Vogel, but scroll down with your eyes to 7 years disqualifying, and then almost backward there, where fewer or lower percentage of African Americans are getting 7-year disqualifications based on POE than those who are white. So this just holds true to some of the disparity that, we've been seeing all throughout our data analysis. And Mr. Vogel, if you'd want to just scroll down to 2019, the same trend holds true, or were we on 2019? But what I can share with you is the trend holds true between 2018, 2019, where individuals who identify as African American are more likely to have a permanent disqualification based on POE than those individuals who are white. And likewise, those individuals who are white are more likely to have a lower year, a 7-year disqualification than those individuals who are identifying as African American. So just some staggering data that concerns us. I imagine it concerns all of us. We just wanted to draw that out as simply as we could. And with that, I would just ask the task force as a whole, when you take a look at some of this additional data here, are there additional places you'd like us to go to take a closer look? We are looking at doing some race disparity rates. So we can say said group is X many times more likely to than other group. And we just want to make sure we're calculating those correctly before we present those more publicly. So that's where we're going with the data analysis right now, but we are here to serve the task force. So if there's a different area or different interest that we could attend to with POE or the table here that we're looking at, please, we welcome your feedback. Mr. Esme.
Thank you. This is really awesome work, and I think it's going to be really helpful for us in the remedies subcommittee. And maybe we don't even have this data, or I don't even know if this data exists at DHS, but it occurred to me while thinking about the disparities that exist in who ends up being disqualified for a preponderance of the evidence determination. I wonder if it would be possible to also look at the flip side, like preponderance of the evidence reviews that declined to find that there was a preponderance of the evidence to disqualify someone, and if racial disparities also exist there.
That is a good question. I don't know if we have that data or not, but Will or Mr. Vogel, would you make a note of that, and we can take a look at our next data analysis committee and see what we got. But
could Tashonda weigh in on that? Is Chair Williamson available just to see if that was requested? And I know that Inspector Modi's here. I don't know if we've already done that yet.
Thank you, Chair. And I do want to say just amazing spreadsheet. Very excited for all that's going to come from the new subcommittee. Yes, I know that with our formal request, we had not, we did ask for disaggregated data, of course, but not specific to the question at hand.
And Inspector Modi, I don't know if you're still on, but is that, I mean, just procedurally, does the department, when looking at backgrounds, just deem one to be one that they look at preponderance of? I'm just trying to wonder what mechanism triggers it and how that works.
So the question you're asking is asked, sorry, it's been a long week. The question you're asking is, are you asking when we look at to do preponderance of the evidence review or a POE review, and then what the data as to on the flip side of not when we find it, but when we don't find it, it would be helpful to put that question. That's a very specific and detailed, and I don't want to even attempt to try to get an answer because I don't know enough at that level anymore on it. And we can we can look at that and see what we can provide you on it. And if we have it, so if you guys can write it up and send that kind of in general what the request is over, we can take a look at what we have and what we're able to provide. I just don't want to promise something or say something because I don't know that level, that detail. I haven't done that work in 6 or 7 years, so I just don't know.
No, we appreciate your candor and just didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but do you think Chair Williamson, the data subcommittee could be tasked with just trying to put that just that one singular request together and get it to I guess I'll just defer to you on how you've been pursuing data, but that seems like a good question to know.
Yeah, that thank you, Chair. That is an amazing question. So just for wording purposes, if you could please, Attorney, oh, I'm so sorry. Could you repeat your question? I just want
Sure.
to make sure I have the wording right.
Yeah, I think we would be looking for demographic breakdown of cases that went through a preponderance of the evidence review, but where DHS determined that there was not a preponderance of the evidence and did not disqualify.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. And I think, Chair Williamson, if you want to run that as you draft it by remedies and with Mr. Esme and Ms. Dawson, that would make some sense. And Mr. Cameron, if you want. I think that makes a lot of
Yes.
sense because, you know, we want to get the words right so we get the right stuff. But I appreciate you, Ms. Williamson, taking that on.
Thank you,
Yes,
Chair.
thank you.
I can follow up with them, and then our next subcommittee meeting, we'll make sure to, as a subcommittee, to get that formal request submitted with Mr. Vogel's assistance. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll defer back to Mr. Cameron.
That is all I have to report, unless there's any other feedback or questions or further analysis of this data that the task force would like to see. Hearing none, I'll turn it back to you, Chair Geffen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cameron. I agree that that information is I don't want to say exciting to look at, but is helpful, and I just appreciate all your great work, Chair Cameron. We had hoped to have, and I think one of the things we've realized is that sometimes we're going to have a lot to talk about in these larger groups, and sometimes we're going to have less, and we're going to reintegrate moving forward some people with some lived experience to briefly give some testimonials. We had hoped to have somebody today. We don't, but I did want to remind members that people have been reaching out to us, and we received 7 thoughtful, sort of detailed testimonials about their personal lived experience. And Mr. Vogels, will you just show where people can read that information, Mr. Vogel, and how it exists?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So I've been sharing these testimonials with the members on that Google Doc that I've worked up. So you've probably already seen all this, but I've also now worked up an equivalent Word document that I'm, as you can see, displaying right now, and that we'll post on the task force website, where I've redacted personal contact information that members of the public have provided, and just given initials when people give last names, just to respect their privacy. But yeah, so I'm displaying the responses we've received so far right now, albeit they all don't fit on one screen.
And after today, Mr. Vogel, where would someone be able to review them?
So we'll post this document to the meetings tab on the task force website on the date for this meeting.
Could you also just send an email to everybody with this as an attachment?
Sure, Mr. Chair.
Just as anecdotally, I went through all these the other day. I sort of read some of them as they came in. I think probably most of them, but I went through and I read them all again, and it just sort of struck me as how important our work is. And it was a good kind of recalibrating moment for me, just to kind of go, oh yeah. And I don't feel like I lost that, but it did help me. And I encourage all of you to take the time, if you can, and read it. I did reach out to everybody on this list and thank them too for their input and time. I actually had a couple conversations with people, and they're really looking to us to help make changes that make sense. Obviously, none of these individuals want vulnerable adults and children to get hurt, but almost every one of them wants to give back in a way to help people not suffer what they suffered. So really good information, and I think we're going to move forward. We're going to continue to bring in people with lived experience and continue to hear their stories, probably at the end of most of our meetings moving forward. Mr. Vogel, anything else to add on that, or does anybody else from the committee have anything they want to add?
Not hearing any of the members speak, Mr. Chair. I guess I'd just like to remind members of the public that this is still an open option. If you navigate to the front page of the task force website and scroll down, you'll see a web forum where you can turn in your stories here. You absolutely don't have to provide your name or other contact information. We just ask that people do so if they're comfortable, so that we could contact them to potentially follow up or receive their testimony. And as you can see here, these are potentially publicly available stories. I mean, in this case, we are displaying these stories, but we do respect your privacy, and we'll make sure that your email address doesn't get out there as part of the public record, for example.
Thank you, Mr. Vogel. One of our members had raised the issue in question about whether or not we want to move meetings of the large or the full task force to the second and fourth Fridays of every month, as opposed to every 2 weeks. And I want to open up, and Gina, do you want to explain that a little bit? Because it is your suggestion, and
Yep. So I'm really busy, and I have other stuff that I do. My government affairs meeting for March, and I'm on the juvenile justice steering committee for the DOC. And every time there's a fifth Friday of the month, it shifts the weeks that this meets, and it's really messing me up. And so if we could just pick 2 weeks of the month to meet, my preference would be the second and fourth, so that it stops switching, because it's causing me some strife with these meetings switching back and forth. And so if we could just pick 2 weeks of the month to meet and leave it like that, that would be awesome.
is that a problem for anybody? For me, it doesn't matter, and I'll do whatever people want. But is Ms. Evans' proposal a problem to anyone? Yeah, Mr. Kammer.
Generally speaking, no. We have I'm appointed here as a member of the Board of Behavioral Health and Therapy. We have our quarterly meetings on the fourth Friday of the month, once a quarter. So there will still be those occasional Fridays where I have a competing meeting, and that has to be my priority of where I'm at. First and third would be better for me, but I imagine if we start shifting, there'll be issues for others. So I would just voice that occasionally on once a quarter, I will likely not be here because I'll be at the Board of Behavioral Health and Therapy. So
Okay. Is that an all-day meeting, Mr. Kammer?
they usually go from about 10 until whenever the work's done, which is about 1, 2, 3. It just depends. So
okay, but it starts at 10. That makes
sense. It starts at the same time. So yeah.
And you say that's quarterly.
Yep, just quarterly. So it won't impact us that many times.
Okay. Anybody else have conflict? Any thoughts either way? I mean, it's always going to be hard juggling a lot of schedules.
I'll just say no objection.
Okay. And why don't we do it then? Why don't we move to the second and fourth, understanding there are going to be times we lose Mr. Kammer. But I think we'll just do it. Mr. Vogel, you had some suggestions about how to get around like the 4th of July area. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm just going to share my screen, Mr. Chair. This is probably easier seen than talked about. So here we are, June 3rd, and June's a 4 Friday week, or sorry, 4 Friday month. So with our previous schedule, we would have met the 17th, which would be the third Friday. My suggestion is, rather than immediately moving to second and fourth Fridays, which like would either involve waiting until the 24th or meeting next week, that we in July, which is a 4 Friday month, then institute that second and fourth schedule. So skip July 1st and instead move to a meeting on July 8th and July 22nd. That being said, Mr. Chair, if the members are comfortable waiting a little longer until the next meeting, we could just simply start the fourth Friday of June and move from there. Totally up to you.
It would make sense to me to go to the fourth Friday and just jump in, especially since we've got some work to do in our subcommittees, and that's where most of the heavy lifting is going on. Are there any objections if we start again on the 24th and go to the new schedule? All right, let's do it. Mr. Vogel, can you kind of follow up with everybody and make sure we're all on the same page with calendars?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. You should all be receiving a calendar invite after this meeting.
Great. That's really, I mean, we always want to open up every meeting to a discussion of any issues that the greater membership has about subcommittee work, subcommittees they're on, not on, and so on. So we want to open up now to any questions, comments, concerns, anything that we should be doing that we're not doing.
So here's one thing that has come up. So I have a couple of meetings that I report out on what we're doing. My Ramsey County Community Advisory Board, as well as the March Government Affairs Board. And it would be really cool if we had just like a running document about like the recommendations that we've made so far. And I don't know that we have a spot or like a doc where all of that is together. And so it'd be cool, sure be cool if we did. And so, because I know we have some stuff that's like solidified so far, but I don't know that it's all in one spot.
Do you think like it should be subcommittee based or big, like it should just be a single doc with all subcommittees contributing to it?
Yep, it could just be a task force document, maybe with like headings for each subcommittee. And then, So it's just one document and then it could be another Google Doc actually. And then we can just put stuff in there. Maybe Will could be the keeper of it. And then as we're making recommendations, they can just go into the subcommittee headings as we're solidifying stuff. And it's obviously going to be a living document that's going to change over time. But then as folks are asking about like, what are y'all doing? Then we have that document we can go into and say, like, here's where we're at so far. And
okay. I think it's a great idea. Do you think, Mr. Vogel, you can start to put that together? Because I think it should go back essentially to each subcommittee with here's what you think it looks like. The subcommittee should essentially work on it, ratify it to something a little bit less formal than that, and send it back to Mr. Vogel to create or to finalize.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. And in fact, the starting point I can use is similar documents that have been worked up by the individual subcommittees. So I'll essentially stick those together and we can go from there. And I'll just note, like, for the sake of clarity, that it's sounding to me like these are working notes on what's being publicly discussed and decided rather than anything behind the scenes. So that should be great for open meeting law compliance as well.
I think it's good for all of us to have that cheat sheet. I think it's good for the public to have it. I think it's a great idea. Thanks, Vice Chair Evans. So each subcommittee should sort of be waiting on that, and then maybe part of the next subcommittee for each group, just to kind of make sure that what Will puts together says what each subcommittee wants it to say. Great. Anything else from anyone? Well, wonderful. Like we said, there are going to be times where we don't use all of our time, and I think today's one of them. And thankfully, it's a beautiful day, and I hope you all get out to enjoy it to some degree. And thank you all again for continued work, effort, expertise. I think we're starting to cruise, we're starting to cook, and appreciate all of you.